Welcome to episode 50 of the Any Spartan Show. That's right, we've officially hit episode 50. This is a special episode. You may have seen the obstacle course at the Crossfit Games. Did you know that Eddie Covell of Playout was behind that? We talked to Eddie. We learned about what that experience was for him and whether he'd do it again. Enjoy the show. If this is your first time listening to the show, thanks for checking us out. We record roughly weekly, and you get to listen to myself, Paul Jones, Sandy Ree, and Josh Chase chat about the obstacle course racing scene. We also do interviews with race directors and business owners in the OCR space. I encourage you to go and check out all of our other episodes over on podcast.anyspartans.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere else you're going to find a podcast. You can also find us over on Facebook as the Any Spartan Show, and we really encourage you to leave questions in the comments that we answer every episode. Now let's get on with the show. On this episode of the Any Spartan Show, I'm talking to Eddie Covell. Eddie is the founder of Playout, and you probably have seen one of his more recent projects on TV or on Facebook Live streaming pretty recently. So we're going to talk to Eddie about how he started a card game and ended up building the obstacle course for the CrossFit Games. Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Thanks so much, Paul.
So if I recall, you are from New Hampshire, right? If I recall,
New Haven, Connecticut.
New Haven, Connecticut. I knew you were up from up here now, but now you're down in Georgia, right?
Yes.
So I think we first met when Spartan did a Connecticut race. They did the casino. I forget which casino it was now, but they did the race in their parking lot, and we met there. But you were the founder of Playout, which is an obstacle course race card game. So
yes. It's a fitness card game, and then the first expansion was an obstacle course training card game. Yes.
So before we start talking about your more recent stuff, how on earth do you get into designing and producing a fitness card game and then get into the OCR world with it? How did that come about? Was that just like a brainchild you had in the bar one night? You're like, why hasn't anyone done this yet? Was it one of those moments, or?
So it's a little bit of a story. So I'll start from the beginning.
Go for it.
I've always been active. In 9th grade, I started lifting weights. When I got to college, I got more into weightlifting, and that was how I exercised.
Yeah.
My sophomore year, I studied abroad in India, and I didn't have a gym or any equipment to exercise with. So I basically had to relearn how to train my body using nothing but body weight exercise. So I met a Kung Fu champion and 2 yoga masters. They taught me how to master my body using just body weight exercise. And so I ended up getting in the best shape of my life. And really I was free running and doing body weight exercise and doing pull-ups on the local playgrounds. And That's how I stayed in shape. And one day I was on a hike with a couple friends running up a waterfall. I turned to one of them and I said, hey, you know what? Why do I need to work out if I can just play out? So that was the genesis of the idea of Playout. And I didn't really know how that was going to be taken into the world. I thought maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll become like a life coach and help people connect with the play aspect of exercise and fitness. And so that was kind of the idea, and it kind of boiled in the back of my head for a while when I came back to America and was in business school. And one day I was sitting in one of my classes, and the professor was talking about your core competency, which is basically what do you do that makes you unique? What do you do that makes you special? And I was thinking about everything that I learned about exercise, my passion for exercise and fitness. And then I was also thinking about the fact that I love cards and card games. I love playing games. I've always loved playing games. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I it was an idea I think I had come into my mind at some point, and I said, why don't I just make an exercise card game? So I had a pack of flashcards, multicolor flashcards. I think I have them over here somewhere. Use them? Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I wrote the game down on a pack of multicolor flashcards. and I started playing with people in my school, and that's basically how Playout came into being. So that is Playout. How I started moving into the obstacle course racing world was when I finally launched the game, which was right when I graduated college. It was the summer of 2013. I was looking for a place to sell the cards, and a friend of mine recommended that I go to a small local obstacle course race called the Fire Breather Challenge.
Yep.
And so I took my card game, and I decided to register for the race on the side to say, hey, how maybe I'll be able to, run and have some fun.
Meet some people on the side, yeah.
Yeah. And so I did the booth thing. I ended up selling 19 decks over 2 days, so not enough to really pay rent, but enough to say, hey, actually people kind of want
get the seed out there, yeah.
Yeah, and I ended up actually winning the race. So it wasn't a competitive heat thing, but I got the fastest time of all the competitors, and I was like,
and really,
wow.
you just wanted to get back to your booth and keep selling cards.
Right, exactly. So at that race, I met Andy Hardy, who's a huge character in the obstacle course racing world.
Yes. We know Andy.
And she loved what I was doing, quickly connected to me. I think I gave her like 10 or 12 decks to take and give out to her friends and sell to her friends. And we stayed in contact, and she actually ended up really taking me under her wing, taking me out to my first Spartan race, and then actually getting me a job as a course manager for a Spartan race later on that year. Actually early 2014. I got involved in the world of obstacle course racing, started going to a lot more races, selling my cards at all the races that I was going to, and getting really competitive in the sport. I placed top 5 in 12 out of the 14 races that I competed in 2014. And that was kind of my intro into obstacle course racing. So in early 2015, I was at a YMCA camp convention. A camp director came up to my booth, and we started chatting about obstacle course racing. And he said, hey, I've been looking for someone to build me an obstacle course for about 7 years now. I said, I'll do it. And he said, okay, write me a proposal.
With your vast obstacle course building background, right?
My experience. But once again, and this is really what happened with the CrossFit course. It was like, I don't know everything that I need to make this happen, but I'm connected enough in the industry that I think I can make it happen. I think I know enough people who'd want to volunteer. I think I know enough people who actually know how to build things. Let me just say that I can do it, and wrote the proposal. And I came out to their camp, showed them how I build the course on the property, surveyed the course, everything like that. And they were like, yeah, great, let's do it. So we went for it. And then that very obstacle course was the obstacle course that when the operations manager of CrossFit was online searching for what companies install obstacle courses, he came across that obstacle course on my website and gave me a call and said, hey, can you do this thing? And I was like, let me call some people and see if we can do it, but I'm really excited and I would love to. And he told me later that the reason, and this is actually what he also said directly to the CEO of Rogue, he said, I called a ton of different companies and everyone was all worried about insurance and can we get it done in this much time and all these different things. Here, this is the guy who is excited, who is ready to make it happen regardless of what was going to come in his way. And that we got the contract.
So when you had that call from, was that the director of CrossFit or the director of Rogue that called?
Rogue. This is the operations manager of Rogue Fitness.
So when the guy from Rogue Fitness called you and said, "Hey, would you build me a course?" Was your immediate reaction was like, "Of course I can, sure, no problem." Did you hang up and have a run around the house, a scream like, "Holy shit! Now what?"
I think I've learned in 4 years of business that you really can't get too excited about any opportunity until the check is on your table or check is in your bank.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So, I was excited for sure for the people who were in my immediate circle there. I was like, hey, this just came. I mean, let's not get too excited, but
let's see where we can go with this.
Yeah.
So you started calling up a bunch of familiar faces. We've had Garfield on the show. I believe he was involved. Hubie from Indian Mudrun was involved, and I'm sure there were many, many others that I either can't name or simply don't know were involved, a whole cast of characters. But how did you go from, I mean, you've just gone from, I built a course for a YMCA to, the operations director of Rogues just called me and said, can you do that, but bigger and on TV? Did you was there a ramp up period in the middle? Did you build a bunch most like smaller or grow the courses you build, or was it like 0 to 100?
Well, okay, so we came back to that camp. We put in 3 more obstacles the next year. He actually called me while I was on a build in New Hampshire at a local, well, not a local, but for you, I guess local, a Jewish summer camp called Camp Yavna, where we were installing another obstacle course. So, I'd like to say we had like 20 more courses under our belt by the time that he called, but truthfully, we had 1.5.
That's hilarious and fantastic all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And did they know what they were getting into? They knew, hey, these guys have just started out and they're eager, but.
I mean, I don't think I ever explicitly said we've only built one course. But I made it clear that we didn't have experience building things at this level. But I knew enough.
No one who doesn't have a big shoe brand behind them or millions of dollars of their own marketing to worry about are gonna have that level, I guess.
Yeah, no, this has never been done before. Even the obstacle course that was featured on the 2012 was a permanent feature of
Camp Pendleton, right?
Camp Pendleton, yeah. And so that wasn't even an installation.
Yeah. And from looking at the footage, I mean, I watched the whole thing. It was all built on a sandpit in a football field, right? So you didn't get to buried in deep in the ground, I guess. You didn't get to dig. You just had to. Everything was freestanding.
Yeah. So basically, it's actually not a football field; it's a parking lot.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. They put in a bunch of hard packed gravel.
Yeah.
And half of that was turned into a what looked like a football field, but basically like a turf field that they laid over concrete. And then half of that was the hard packed gravel where we put our obstacles right on top of that. And then they packed a foot of sand up on top. As you said, yes, it was all the footers for all the obstacles, were all custom made by Rogue.
Yeah.
Out of super hardcore steel. And they also made the braces that came off of the telephone poles that we used, or not telephone poles, but that type of material.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how long was the build process? How long did it take to set that whole thing up?
So we were pre-planning for 3 weeks, I'd say. I mean, not too many hours per week, but just putting things into motion. The prefabrication took about 9 days. In an Ohio warehouse, and the final build we built in 5 days.
Wow. Huh. It's a pretty big build. I mean, it's not spread out over a 5K course, but it's way wider than pretty much anyone else out there. And everything looked, I mean, considering it's all effectively freestanding, nothing moved, nothing wobbled. It was all pretty heavy duty stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. So, when you were building it, I mean, obviously I'm going to assume you had input from the veteran race directors, right? The Garfields, the Hubies, and the people there. Were you free to build whatever you wanted to build, or did you get told, hey, we want a wall, and we want a balance obstacle, and we want this? Or were you kind of, here's our layout, this is what we're proposing, and you got to drive that direction?
Yeah, so basically, CrossFit sent Rogue a sketch of what they wanted. And we specifically, I think Garfield and I, with, I'm not going to claim to have a ton of experience in most areas, but I do have a pretty good sense of, I don't know why, but just maybe playing on enough playgrounds throughout my life, have a pretty good sense of what makes sense as a racer. I think probably because of my role as a elite racer throughout my years of actually running obstacle courses and then building a little bit and working as a course manager for Spartan Race. I kind of had a good sense of like what was supposed to be on obstacle courses, how they would flow as a racer. and Garfield has more of that perspective of, okay, yeah, but this is how it's going to work as far as when you build it and how this many racers are going to affect the obstacle going over it. So we actually, I can point to 10 different features of the course where we specifically made recommendations and they went with our recommendations, but ultimately their general idea for what they wanted on each obstacle stayed the same. Mm-hmm. We just kind of provided feedback on, what was going to make sense for them as they built it. Originally there was a 12-inch diameter pole on top of the cargo net, and the cargo net was already scary as it is.
Yeah,
with an 8-inch
that was pretty high.
Yeah, it's 15 feet. I mean, it was. Yeah. We were testing it in a warehouse over concrete, and that was like, and that's without the foot of sand. So it's another foot higher and over concrete. Super scary. So anyway, like changing that 12-inch to an 8-inch, and just small things like that. Just understanding from a racer's perspective what changes need to be made, what makes sense. And it was a cool collaboration. I think probably the better situation would have been to be, instead of us communicating with Rogue, communicating with CrossFit, communicating with Rogue, communicating with us, the best situation probably would have been just for us to communicate directly with CrossFit and say, here's what's going on. And at the same time, it was great to have Rogue be able to design those braces and everything for us. But just having so many layers of communication, I think there were probably some things that I, at the end of the day, would have done slightly differently with the final course, though it ended up being, I think, a really good thing as well.
So you built this course in a warehouse in Ohio, and then you put it all on the back of a truck, I guess, and ship it all out to Wisconsin, where they were going to rebuild it. Were you involved in the rebuild part, or did you just send it off with a bunch of plans, like a giant Lego set, and there was a build team there who built it up, or were you guys involved in start to finish, build the whole thing out?
We did the whole thing. So we did the whole prefab, loaded onto about 4 or 5 trucks, shipped it out, and then we brought our team to Madison, Wisconsin, and installed it in 5 days. We were working side by side with the Rogue team for the majority of that time. They really wanted to get it done quickly, and we did.
That's awesome. So you've built this thing in a parking lot in Wisconsin now, and you know that like the world-class CrossFit athletes are going to be getting on it pretty soon, and Facebook live streaming to hundreds of thousands of people, and then it starts raining. Like, what was that, the day before? It just started peeing it down out there, right? And it was so all the wood became slick. So I think that was probably one of the biggest, when I was watching it, one of the biggest things, because there was a lot of comment and I guess criticism from people saying, well, that's not a real obstacle course, which bullshit. I mean, these guys are going through a timed pace for competition, so they had, I mean, how many obstacles were there in the end? There were probably a dozen from beginning to end, or eight to a dozen?
It depends how you count it. There were technically 9, but if you count the over-under as all the different over-unders, then that's more. And
I actually wanted to ask you about that. So over-under. All the athletes went over.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I watched that, and I was like, I'm sure they meant to go under those beams. Were they meant to go under, or was that just something they changed, or?
Yeah. So this is kind of where, as I said, I think having our feedback a little bit more throughout the process might have changed things. So 2 things. So first off, they were originally designed as over-unders.
Yeah. And for anyone who didn't see it, it was a wall, 5-foot wall, it looked like, to a beam.
Wall,
yeah.
beam.
So, and the beam was 2 or 3 feet off the ground, to another wall, to a beam, to a wall, to a beam. And all the athletes, when they were going through, they jumped the wall, jumped the beam, jumped the wall, jumped the beam. And I remember watching the tests they did the day before, and I was like, I'm sure they're meant to be going under that beam.
Right.
Because that's how we see it in OCR, but obviously this isn't OCR, this is CrossFit, so they went at it a little different.
Yeah, I think it's for 2 things. So actually, the person who made that final call, I think, was Dave Castro of CrossFit. Yeah. He came out to the course the day before, or not the day before, but actually the last day that I was on site, Friday. And he had some test athletes out there, and he was playing on stuff, and they were playing on stuff, and just kind of making decisions as to, how do we want to go through this? How do we want to go through this? And I think basically they made some changes based on the pace that they wanted to see the race run at.
Just for the flow.
And the course being so tight, having 9 obstacles of that size and caliber back to back to back to back to back, like couldn't have been any closer pretty much.
Yeah.
I think in order to create a sense of flow in the course, decided let's go over. And as someone who's ran the course, I think that was actually not a bad call. I think it was fun. It was
Sure.
It made sense to go over. I tried it over under also, and that would have been fine also. But as far as what he was trying to create with the flow, I think it was a good decision. With a course that small, you got to give some sense of pace and some sense of like
It was a speed run. This wasn't a technical obstacle course.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And plus, very technical. But
right. I mean, it wasn't. When I say technical, I mean it wasn't technically an obstacle course. It wasn't about running between obstacles and a 5K distance. It was, and at the end of the day, the CrossFit Games are Dave Castro's baby. If he says it's over, it's over. Yeah. There's not a lot more to it than that, really.
Yeah.
So how did that rain change things? Because when that rain started coming down, and certainly at one point, I think when the men's elites went out, or when the men's primary heat went out, their times were slower than some of the earlier waves just because it got so wet and so cold and so windy. That must have been a big game changer for traction, for grip. I know the rope swing obstacle where they had to swing from a beam to a incline beam. There were a lot of athletes falling on their butts, sliding right off that thing.
Yeah. So first off, that obstacle obviously upped in intensity. I'd say that was probably really the main effect of the rain.
And that shouldn't have been a very difficult obstacle. I'm sure in testing that seemed pretty simple.
Actually, it was pretty difficult.
Oh, was it?
I was about maybe 60-70% completion on that on my first try. Just there was something about the angle. It went up and the rope and then a flat. And you really had to jump at just the right angle so that you can swing a little bit. But if you swing too much, then you're going up and you can't get on a beam.
And then you're doing it on the way back down. And okay.
Right. So it was a little bit tricky. And that was actually another place where I think had I had a little bit more input, I think we probably could have made and maybe that's what they wanted. Maybe they wanted that obstacle to just be that hard. But truthfully, I think in order to create a more level playing field, there were so many fails on that, and it didn't look that great in my opinion. I think it would have been better to have that be a higher completion rate, and then it's really a race for all the athletes as opposed to you messed that up. All right, now you're out of it.
Go around and do it again.
Yeah.
It was certainly interesting to watch how these guys were going through compared to how an obstacle course athlete would have gone through. How they did the cargo nets. I mean, you see every day in OCR the elite guys, they dive over the top, grab the rope, and just do a flip, and it's the quickest way down. And I don't think we saw any of the CrossFit guys take that risk for obvious reasons. This was day 2 of 4 days of pretty heavy competition. So there was a lot of mitigating risk, I think, for some of these guys out there.
Yeah. Also, even with an 8-inch diameter pole at the top of that obstacle, it was pretty hard to do the flip.
Okay.
It if anything, just really scary.
15 feet in the air going over head first.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I personally didn't try it and train in practice myself. And I think when you're up there at the top, you kind of feel why for obvious reasons.
Well, and these guys know they're going out there for, they did 2 more competitions that day alone.
Yeah.
So they got to be careful at least a little bit. You need to win, but you also need to not DNF, which they had on the cyclocross. I watched it. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was great entertainment to watch. And I actually got into a discussion last night with on a Mudrun Guide about OCR on TV. And I think that's the way to do OCR on TV, are these really short courses where you can watch them in minute and a half chunks and get the full experience. And that's the viral kind of way to spread social media and TV to as an audience.
100%. I think I think Hobie has known that since day one that he's been in the sport. And I think anyone who really understands the sport, that's how TV obstacle course racing has to be. Just long distance races you can't keep up with. I mean, at least personally, like in my runs, I'm usually, if I'm racing against someone great, I'm going to be 2 to 5 minutes behind them, and that's that's a TV spectacle.
That's really, really boring television.
Yeah.
So you've gone from building a card deck to putting on the obstacle course for the CrossFit Games. So what's next? Because we know the CrossFit Games probably won't do an OCR next year because they change all the time. But now you have this this achievement in your business. Are you going to become a course builder? Are you staying with Spartan? Are you focusing on the card game? Doing all of the above?
Yeah. So as you know, the past 2 courses that we built have been for camps. We're also contracted to build an obstacle course for a local Jewish school. So I think I learned a lot. One of the things I learned from this experience was who I am, who I want to be, and who I don't want to be. And I'm not saying I would never take on a contract like this again. I definitely see the potential to do it way better the next time.
Yep.
On many different levels. I learned what I needed to learn in many senses, though I'm sure there's a lot more to learn still. But I'm passionate about sharing fitness with a community that doesn't already love and is passionate about fitness. I care about people who are either young people who haven't yet been exposed to how to stay in shape for the rest of their lives, or older people who have lost touch with their love of exercise that we all have inherently when we're children. And so, I mean, I think that's really what the mission of Playout is to motivate and inspire people to exercise through play. Sure. And people who are in the CrossFit community don't need as much motivation and inspiration. They already got it.
They're already out there doing it.
Yeah, and in a way, I think CrossFit is really it is Playout. It is fitness made fun because they created a game out of fitness. Mm-hmm. Every single activity they do is some sort of competition where you earn points, and as you get points, then you can become like a winner. And it's the CrossFit Games. It's very very clearly in line with the philosophy of Playout. Those people already got it though. So I'm more interested in how to get it to everyone, how to get it to kids who in our generation aren't the little wild boy that I was, who my parents said closed the door on me, pushed me outside, closed the door on me, and said go play. And I had a huge backyard in woods to play in New England, and that was it.
You were gone for the day, and they saw you at dinner time.
Exactly, and that type of lifestyle, I think, is fading, which increases the need for these visceral experiences. Like obstacle course racing. I think that's why there's this crazy, weird cult that we have of obstacle course racers who couldn't imagine doing anything but getting muddy and wet and having a great time and playing on a big old playground every weekend. And I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about sharing that experience with more and more people. Sharing the experience of having fun with exercise and with moving your body, and getting more people hooked on fitness.
That's awesome. And so the card game's still available?
Absolutely.
Where can people go to get that? Because I can say I've taken that when I've traveled. I travel for work a ton, so you get stuck in a hotel room, you can't get out to the hotel gym sucks. So I've taken that traveling, and it's perfect for that.
Absolutely, yeah. So our website is playoutthegame.com, and you can contact us if you want to order. First off, you can buy cards and everything you need to buy on the website. You can buy our merchandise and swag, and if you need to order an obstacle course for your camp, school, other organization, backyard, anything that you want, we will probably be able to make it happen.
That's awesome. Well, I know you have a cutoff, so I will call it there. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate
Thanks, Paul.
you
I appreciate
hopping on.
it.
Thanks, Eddie.
All right. let me end with just saying, why work out when you can play out?
Love it. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
As always, guys, thanks so much for checking out the show. We'd love to hear what you think, so give us some feedback. Submit a question, share a story from one of your recent races or events. I think the show gets better and better with your participation, and it's not just Paul, Sandy, and myself talking. So to reach out, ask questions, suggest a topic, whatever it may be. Follow along on Facebook. We've got a dedicated Any Spottins show page, or you can join the community at Any Spottins on Facebook as well. Twitter's your thing. Shoot us a tweet at Any Spottins. And if you want to find our full library of episodes, I'd recommend either iTunes or Stitcher. So again, for Paul, Sandy, myself, thanks so much for listening, and until next time.